The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life, showing the advancing Crithian armada. 300 warships, each the size of a small moon, carved through the darkness of space with malevolent purpose. They had conquered 47 star systems in less than a year, leaving nothing but ash and silence in their wake. Ambassador Xyloth's crystalline form shimmered with what could only be described as despair. "The humans have been contacted," he announced, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "They are sending representatives." A collective murmur of confusion rippled through the assembled delegates. The Crithians were 12 hours from reaching the human colony of New Terra, where 15 million souls awaited their fate. Representatives? Council Prime Vixara's tentacles coiled tightly. "We need their entire fleet. Every available warship. Do these primitive mammals not understand the gravity?" The chamber doors opened with a whisper and two figures walked in. The first was a young woman with sharp green eyes and dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations, no insignia of rank. Beside her strode a tall man with weathered features and an unsettling calmness in his demeanor. "I'm Meryl Chen," the woman said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise like a knife. "This is Denzel Rodriguez. We're from Earth's Diplomatic Corps." "Diplomatic Corps?" Xyloth's tone carried an edge of hysteria. "We need warriors. The Crithians will be upon New Terra in less than half a solar rotation." Denzel smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "We know. That's why we're here." Meryl approached the holographic display, studying the Crithian formation with an intensity that made several council members uncomfortable. Her fingers danced across the interface, pulling up tactical data, fleet compositions, communication frequencies. "They've won 47 consecutive engagements," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Never lost a single vessel." "Perfect record." "Yes," Vexara hissed impatiently. "Which is why we need your military forces, not bureaucrats playing with star charts." Meryl turned, and something in her expression made the Council Prime recoil. "You don't understand what humans are, do you? You've read our history, our files. You know we fought wars among ourselves for thousands of years before we reached the stars. Barbaric tribal conflicts," Xyloth dismissed. "What relevance?" "Every species fights," Denzel interrupted, his voice quiet but commanding absolute attention. "But humans are the only ones who studied it. We turned warfare into a science, an art form, a philosophy. We wrote books about it. Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, Musashi. We analyzed every battle, every strategy, every failure and victory." Meryl's fingers flew across the console. "The Crithians have a perfect record because they've never faced an opponent who understood the fundamental principle of warfare." "Which is?" demanded Vixara. "Violence of action," Meryl replied simply. "Overwhelming, decisive, perfectly executed violence delivered before your enemy can even comprehend what's happening." She brought up a new display, a blueprint of something the council members had never seen before. It looked less like a weapon and more like a mathematical equation given physical form. "This is a quantum displacement device," Denzel explained. "We developed it 30 years ago but never had a reason to use it. It can create a localized field that displaces matter at the subatomic level." "You're describing a theoretical weapon," Xyloth protested. "Even if it exists, deploying it against 300 warships won't be necessary," Meryl said. She highlighted a single point in the Crithian formation, their flagship. Every command decision, every tactical adjustment, every communication relay, it all flows through one ship. Take out the flagship and their fleet becomes a headless serpent. "Easier said than done," Vexara pointed out. "That flagship is protected by 75 ships and shields that have withstood nuclear bombardment." Meryl checked her chronometer. "Denzel, what's our current time to target?" 4 minutes, 30 seconds, he replied, consulting a device on his wrist. The council erupted in confused chatter. 4 minutes? What could possibly happen in 4 minutes? "You see?" Meryl continued, her voice cutting through the noise. "While you were calling this emergency session, humanity wasn't debating. We were acting. 3 hours ago, an unmanned vessel entered quantum displacement protocol. It's been traveling through folded space completely undetectable, carrying a single payload." The holographic display shifted, showing real-time footage of the Crithian fleet. At its center, the massive flagship pulsed with power, confident in its invincibility. "Humans learned something millennia ago," Denzel said softly. Victory doesn't go to the strongest. It goes to the one who strikes first, strikes hard, and strikes without hesitation. Meryl's chronometer beeped. 30 seconds. The council watched in stunned silence as a pinprick of light appeared directly beneath the Crithian flagship. It was barely visible, no larger than a star in the distance. 20 seconds. The light began to grow, pulsing with an eerie blue radiance that seemed to bend the space around it. 10 seconds. Xyloth's crystalline form had gone completely still.
What have you done?
What we do best, Meryl replied. We ended it. The light exploded outward in a sphere of absolute silence. The Crithian flagship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, but erased from reality at the quantum level. The displacement field expanded for exactly 2.3 seconds before collapsing in on itself, taking the flagship and everything within a 50-kilometer radius into non-existence. The remaining Crithian ships hung motionless in space, their command structure obliterated, their tactical network severed. They began drifting, firing randomly, colliding with each other in their confusion. The entire engagement had lasted 5 minutes from payload delivery to complete tactical collapse. Vixara's tentacles had gone limp. 5 minutes, she whispered. You ended a war in 5 minutes. No, Denzel corrected gently. We ended it 3 hours ago when we made the decision. The 5 minutes was just the universe catching up. Meryl closed the display and turned to face the council. Humanity learned a long time ago that warfare isn't about having the biggest guns or the most ships. It's about will, speed, and the courage to do what must be done without hesitation. We didn't foretell defeat because we don't waste time on predictions. We create outcomes. She started toward the exit, Denzel falling into step beside her. Wait, Xyloth called out. The Crithians. What will happen to the surviving ships? Meryl paused at the doorway. They'll surrender within the hour. Without command structure, without purpose, they're just frightened beings in metal shells. We'll offer them terms, fair ones. But you could destroy them all, Vexara said, unable to keep the tremor from her voice. You have that power. We do, Denzel acknowledged. But victory isn't about killing your enemy. It's about making them stop being your enemy. That's another thing humans learned the hard way. As the two humans left the chamber, the Galactic Council sat in profound silence, contemplating the terrifying realization that they had just witnessed something unprecedented, a species that had weaponized not just technology, but the very philosophy of conflict itself. The war was over, humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.